All right, excellent. My name is Eric Johnson. I'm a serverless developer advocate for AWS, and I'm glad to see you guys here. We're going to have some fun this morning. I have a hard, fast rule when I do presentations, just so you know. I never, ever do live coding. So just so you know, about 90% of what we're going to do today is live coding. So we're going to see what the live code gods do to us, and we'll see what happens. I know we've had some internet problems, but I think we're good. But so before we get started, I want to just tell you a little bit about who I am, and we'll jump up ahead here. Also, just let me do this real quick. So they've got in your application, the GOTO application, that's where you ask questions and can rate the session. And I would love your feedback. And you'll see why today. I mean, I want your feedback anyway, but you'll really see why today. I would love to see what you think about what we're going to build today. All right. So a little bit about me. I am a senior developer advocate for serverless. How many of y'all use serverless now? Okay, a couple of you, alrighty. How many of y'all would say, hey, we're experts at serverless? Okay, yeah, I probably, I'm a serverless DA, so I'm probably close to it, but not really. It's a fun and it's a pioneering thing that's going on, right? How many of y'all do IoT? Okay, alrighty. So let me give you the caveat here. I'm a serverless guy who's going to dabble a little bit in IoT, okay? I'm not an IoT guy dabbling in serverless. You could go either way. So just so you know. I am a dad of 5, and yes, that's true. I am crazy. My wife is a superhero. I'm a husband of 1, that wife. I'm a musician, and I cross that out because a lot of people, I'm a drummer. I'm going to knock this sign down just so we're all clear. That's going down. I am a drummer, which is, some people say that isn't a musician. And I'm a computer nerd. I'm a serverless freak. I've been doing serverless since it came out when it was announced in, I believe, 2014. And I've been playing around with it. I've gone through the hard knocks. I've gone through the ups and downs. And so we're going to talk through some of that today. But there's a couple rules when I'm speaking. And I'm not going to come off the stage, but I will tell you it's a little wobbly, so I may take it down as well. There's a couple of rules when I'm speaking, and it helps a lot. And I know you're thinking, who are you to make rules? Well, I'm the guy with the mic on, right? So the first rule is this, okay? This is any number I want it to be. Okay? There's a good chance I may hold this up and say 7, and and somebody new will come in. Somebody in the back will be like, that's a 1. Nope, that's a 7 because I said 7. So and I do that a lot. These are quotes, not apostrophes. I do this a lot too. The other day I was working, and someone in the back always waves back. You see, wave. And they always use their pinky. It's kind of funny. And these are thumbs. So I will make one-finger jokes. I'm comfortable with that. If it does make you uncomfortable, you're going to be uncomfortable because I make one-finger jokes and I have fun with that. So we'll have some fun. We'll play around today and we'll get started. So let's talk about today's agenda. First thing we're going to talk about what is IoT and serverless. What is it? What does it do? Second thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the architecture we're going to build today. We're going to talk about the tools we're going to build today. And then in our demo, we're going to do a couple things. We're going to build and deploy an application backend. Okay? And we're going to build and deploy an application, actually we're just going to deploy an application front end. I've already built that. Okay? It's out there. And then we're going to activate an IoT one-click button. And I'll kind of explain what that means. So for time reasons, we're going to move pretty quick. And hopefully we get it all done. So if you have questions, please submit them to the app, and we'll try to answer it, and I'll be in the hallway. I'm also at the AWS booth all day today and all day tomorrow, so I'll answer any questions or find someone who can answer them for you. So, all right, let's do it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is IoT loves serverless. Okay, the idea of IoT and serverless work together so well. Now, if you're not familiar with serverless, in a nutshell, I'm going to tell you it's the ability to manage code or execute code or messaging. There's all kinds of things without managing the framework underneath it. A lot of times when we think of serverless, we just think of Lambda. And I've got this Lambda icon up here because that's kind of the first thing we think about. But serverless is really a lot more than just Lambda. It's when you start thinking serverlessly, you start thinking of how do I execute my code? How do I send messages? How do I manage this? How do I trigger this? And with all that, I don't want to manage the underlying infrastructure. And that's what serverless provides you. Now, IoT gives us this ability to interact with things. IoT stands for Internet of Things. Excuse me one moment here. Okay? And so with IoT, we're going to have an action. Maybe it's a button click. Maybe it's a door open. Maybe it's a someone punches a bag, I don't know, something like that. And it's gonna send a message to the IoT hub. And this can be several different places. Okay, this can be, AWS IoT hub, it can be something you have running, but basically it's a place that receives these messages. It's then gonna trigger a target of some type. And in our world, the one we're talking about, it's gonna be a Lambda, okay? It's gonna trigger a Lambda, and that Lambda is gonna perform a reaction. It's gonna do something based on that click. So today, we're going to build a feedback application. And when you click a button, it's going to tell me how cool I am, or uncool, or undecided. But we're going to go with cool for now. Okay? So that's kind of the idea of this IoT loves serverless, because with IoT, you may have the hardware that you're using, you have the buttons that you're going to click, you have the coffee maker, you have the whatever, but you don't have to manage any of the underlying framework. So they work hand in hand really well. Things you can do with IoT, man, this is just a list I came off the top of my head last night. I mean, there are so many things you can do. You can trigger an AWS service. I got a buddy of mine that builds his website every time he makes a change. He can trigger a whole, clearing cache, things like that, all with an IoT button. You can send an SMS, you can send an email, turn a light off or on. This is very common now. You can alert your family, start a car, transfer money, retrieve your Tesla. I got a buddy that's working on pushing a button and his Tesla comes to him. Okay? I don't have a Tesla. My Suburban won't go anywhere with a button. So you can retrieve your kids. They have phones, you can push a button. The first button I ever got, I programmed it that when I clicked it, it told my wife I love her. I thought that was pretty cool. And if you double clicked it, it told her other stuff. It was fun. Stop sending me messages. So you can put your house on vacation. Anybody have an Alexa? Okay, Alexa is part of our IoT system. So I can tell, when I leave my house, I just did this on Friday. When I leave my house, I say, hey Alexa, put the house on vacation. Okay, when are you leaving? I'm leaving now. Okay, when are you back? Sunday night. Okay, so she lets the house warm up or cool down. I live in Colorado, so she's gonna let it cool down, and then she warms it back up in time for us to be there. It's all based on IoT. You can feed your dog. You can start sprinklers. You can call the police. So there's all kinds of different things that can be done, and the list is endless. So the button we're going to be using today is called an IoT OneClick, or I'm sorry, an IoT Enterprise, and it's part of the OneClick family. And what that means is it's very easy to set up, and I'll actually show you how to set one up today, where you claim the button and then you assign it some tasks, okay? And so we can set that up. So it gives you an idea of what we're looking at. And I've got a couple of these up here, and I'll be throwing some of these out later. So that's in the box. I haven't opened it yet because I said in my abstract that we'd be open the box. All right, so before we get to coding, I want to talk about what we're going to actually build today and the services we're going to use. So we really believe in the right tools for the job. Okay, we really believe in making sure that we're being efficient and economic and effective with our tooling. So the tools we're going to use today are several. We're going to use Amazon API Gateway for us to be able to talk to our voting app with an HTTP, like just a website. We're going to be using AWS Lambda. That's going to power our compute. So that's going to do our logic. Okay. We're going to use Amazon DynamoDB to collect our data. We're going to use IoT OneClick, as I talked about before. We're going to use the AWS Systems Manager, and you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, this is serverless. Why am I using the AWS Systems Manager? Well, SSM has this wonderful little thing called the parameter store in it, okay? And the parameter store is a place where you can store parameters, okay? It's right in the name, right? And so, so we're going to use that, and I'll explain why in just a minute. And we're also going to use the AWS Amplify console. Has anybody used Amplify before? Oh, you're going to love it. Okay, you're probably all going to want to hug me at the end of this. Amplify is so cool. It makes life really easy. So we'll kind of climb into that in a minute. All right. Make sure we're good on time. Okay, so this is our architecture we're going to start with. So we're going to build a simple, we have a mobile client, a web client, whatever, you can hit it. We're not going to build a mobile app today, but you can hit it from your mobile. We're going to connect to the API gateway. That API gateway is going to route based on our method. So it's going to, if it's a get, it's going to route it to our get lambda. If it's a post, it's going to route it to our post lambda. And finally, it's going to interact with our database behind it. Okay, we're going to set up the security and everything that goes behind it. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the parameter store. Now here's something kind of interesting about IoT buttons. Okay, I can't easily, or we're not gonna in this particular session, I can't tell it which session to add to. Okay, so I need the Lambdas, I need the backend to be aware of what database record I want to work with, what my database ID is. I can't pass it in from my client, I can't pass it in from the button. So I'm going to set a parameter in the parameter store that both those Lambdas look at. So when I get a GET request, it's going to go, okay, which session am I working with? Okay, give me the feedback there. And when I'm posting, it'll do the same thing. It'll grab the parameter from the parameter store. So that's why we're going to use that here. And finally, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to connect our IoT button. And we're going to do that through the console so you can kind of see how that's done, because I think that's an interesting thing to see. So you take your IoT button, it clicks it. Using the AWS IoT OneClick service, it's going to then trigger the post. The end goal is this. We're going to get this front-end application that be real-time. You'll be able to click and tell me how cool this is. We're gonna, and I'm going to really put you guys to work. I would love to see your feedback on this, but I still want you to put your feedback in the GOTO as well. And they have to match. So I don't want to see, hey, it's all cool, and then it wasn't cool in there. So tell me honestly, if it's not cool, I want to know. But not really. So, no, I do. I'm just kidding. All right. So one other thing we want to talk about is SAM. Is anybody familiar with SAM? Okay, we got one guy. Great. Okay. Two. You guys like it? SAM's cool. SAM stands for Serverless Application Model. And there's several parts to it. It's an abstract of CloudFormation. And so it allows you to do what would take about 20 lines in CloudFormation in about 3 lines in SAM. And then it goes through what's called the transform. And so here's how it kind of works. So a couple things. Again, it's a CloudFormation extension. It has special serverless resources. You can do functions, APIs, tables, layers, and applications. It supports anything in CloudFormation. So if you use SAM, you're not limited to SAM documentation or templating. You can use CloudFormation as well. And it has an open specification. You can see the link here, serverless, aws.amazon.com, serverless SAM. You can read all about it there. Basically what it looks like is you have a SAM template. And if you've seen CloudFormation, this looks very familiar. But there's some critical things to understand. In this division, you'll see above, there's this transform tag. And it tells CloudFormation, oh, okay, this is a SAM template. I need to transform it. I need to take these lines of code and turn it into a CloudFormation template to create a function. So you can see here, this top one tells it to transform. The second section builds the function. And it's really interesting. You see here where it says events, get HTML, and then it says the event type is API. That's actually going to build an API gateway interface. Okay, that's how we're going to build this. We don't have to go out and set up the API gateway separately. SAM is going to do that automatically for us. Okay, and it's going to do it. We can base it on the path and the method. And then this down here, this builds a DynamoDB table. And that's literally all it takes to build a simple table with an ID of ID. And it's an unstructured NoSQL table that in DynamoDB. So what that enables is this, and this looks a little different. This comes from one of our examples. This becomes that. Okay, and that's the architecture that you see when you're using the CloudFormation template. And that's our goal for today. So we are going to get started. We want some code. All righty, and so here we go. Now, I just have 2 fingers, but I fat finger with the best of them, okay? So keep up with me. We'll probably see some mistakes, but let's see where we go on this. All right. I may have to do some adaptation here to get this to work. We're just going to end the show here for a moment, and you guys are going to see probably my banking information, things like that. Let me close this here real quick. All right. Okay, so we're going to just go in. Now, one of the first things that we're going to do, let's open my demo workspace here. Now, I use Visual Studio Code. You can do this. There's a lot of different IDs that you can do this on. This is my preference. I also use Cloud9. So we're starting with a very simple, it's an empty project, right? You can see my little squirrel down here for SAM. I'm very proud of that. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, SAM comes with a CLI as well. It's not just an abstraction of CloudFormation. It comes with a CLI that allows you to do a lot of things locally, and I'm going to show you that today. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a SAM init, and it's going to build a default project that is real simple. Let me blow this code up. Sorry, guys. Can you all see it in the back? Is it big enough, or does it need to get bigger? Okay, gotcha. I'm sorry? How do you install SAM? That's a great question. So SAM CLI, you can do it through Brew if you're on a Mac. If you're on a PC, it can be done with pip. So it is Python based. So you can go out to the AWS. If you go to Serverless SAM, the link I had earlier, it'll show you how to install SAM CLI. It is based on AWS CLI, so you need to have that installed as well. If you're on a Mac, I heavily encourage you to use the brew installation for both of those. It makes life much easier, gets the Python in the right version, things like that. Okay, so there we go. I couldn't remember the hotkeys. All right, is that better? Can y'all see that a little bigger? All right, that's doable. Okay. All right, so what we've done here is a SAM invoke. It builds us a very basic structure under a folder called SAM app. Okay, and what we're looking at is we have our function, which is our hello world function. Inside there, it has tests. It has a get npm ignore. It has the actual code, and it has a package.json. Each of the functions are actually treated in the initial phase. They're treated as their own applications. So you can npm install into or you can build it so that each function is on its own. That's kind of how we structure these out. You also have an event.json. This event is just there to test if you're doing an API test. You have the README, which talks through a lot of this, and you have the template, and this is the SAM template. And we'll talk through that in just a second. So just to kind of see this working, I'm going to CD into the hello world, to the SAM app. Hang on, SAM app. There we go. Hello world. And I want to go ahead and install any dependencies. And if our internet is good here, there we go. So the only dependency we really have, we have some stuff for our testing, Mocha, things like that, and then we have Axios. And you can look inside of the app itself, and you can see here, and I'm going to actually just pull this, I'm going to uncomment so you can see these. So this is pulling Axios, which is a library. It's an HTTP library that does REST calls. And then we're going to hit an IP. We're going to hit a service that gives back an IP. And then what we want to do is we want to go ahead and grab that using an await. We're going to grab that, and then we're going to respond. And this is a standard response that we use when we're using API Gateway. API Gateway in proxy mode, and we'll go into that later, or I'll talk about that maybe in the hall, we'll actually just pass the response back. So one of the cool things that we can do here locally is we can do a SAM app, SAM local invoke. And I'm going to pass it a flag that says no event. I'm not worried about the event right now. So it's going to do that now. Oh, hang on a second here. I'm in the wrong folder. There we go. It needs to have that template to do the work, and I was one folder in. Okay, so now what it's going to do is it actually ran the function, and you can see right here is my response. Message, hello world, and the IP address we're hitting it from. So this is a way for me to run a local invoke. Rather than pushing my Lambda up to AWS constantly, I can test locally. I can even go, I can say SAM local start API, and I can do it with spaces in place here, like so. And what it's going to do here is it's going to start a local version of API Gateway. And it's going to make that Lambda available, and you can see right here running on HTTP on the root of it, because in my template, and we'll talk about this a little bit, we've got our path hello. It's saying I'm going to run this on 127 on your local host. So let's go see that real quick. Okay, and so we've got an error, and the reason we've got an error is because we have to go to the actual path that we want. And there you go. And let me blow that up as well so you can see that. I'm sure I'll do that. So what I've got is a running API. And the cool thing here is if I want to go back and change my code, I can go back to, let's say, my app, and I'm going to say, hello world, let's say hello GOTO. Now I'm going to save this, but I'm not going to restart my service. Okay? I'm going to go back here. I'm going to refresh that. And any delay you're seeing here, there it says hello GOTO. So this allows you to iterate very fast. Okay, you're able to build and work on this, and you can build local APIs, and you don't have to push all the time. I don't encourage that this is where you run your test, your regress tests, things like that, regression tests and unit tests. That's not what this is for. This is for building out your service and iterating. So, all right. So what we've got now is we've got this local idea of an API gateway running with a Lambda behind it. So let's go ahead and start building our application. Now, I do have a cheat sheet, so I don't have to type all the code out, so you're going to see me cheat a little bit, and I feel totally comfortable with that. I'm going to close some of these out here. All righty. So First thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, let's stop this service, and we're going to clean up just a little bit. So let's go back into Hello World, and I'm going to uninstall my Axios because I don't want a dependency at all there. Okay, so we're not going to use that anymore because we're going to replace it. Okay, so now what I want to do, we're going to come back out to the root. Okay, so what I want to do, I need 2 functions, right? How many? 2. All right, you guys are very quiet. That's, I held up 2 to give you a heads up. So yeah, I need 2 functions. I'm going to have one that handles any GET requests. I'm going to have one that handles any POST requests. I could put them in the same. It's not a big deal. Through the context of the HTTP or the API gateway call, it would tell me, hey, this is a POST, this is a push. But I like to keep things simple. I like to keep them separated, okay? So let's go ahead and build our structure first. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to move our hello world to, and we're going to call it GET, okay? So you can see it right here. We've changed it out there. That's really easy. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to copy that to POST, okay? So there you go. Real easy. I've got 2 functions ready to go. They do the same thing right now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to update our template, okay? So let's walk through this template real quick so you can see it, and I'll blow the size up here. I think I will. Can everybody see that okay? All right. So in this original one, there's a couple things. Actually, well, you know what? We're just going to clear all this out, and I'll talk through it on the new one. So let me grab here my document here. Oh, we got a fail. We don't care right now. That's because there's nothing there. All right, so here's our cheat sheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the template. We're going to pull the whole thing in, then I'll walk through and we'll talk through it. Now what this is the SAM template. Okay, and the SAM template is what describes our infrastructure. If you've ever heard the term infrastructure as code, that's exactly what you're looking at, okay? Now my YAML tabs and spaces might be a little messed up, but the indentions there. YAML can be a beast sometimes. It's all about spacing. Does anybody, who uses YAML in here? All right, how many of y'all like, no way, we use JSON? Okay, all right, so I love the joke, my other data center is a YAML. It's one funny. Most people just look at me like I'm weird, but that's all right. So let's talk through this real quick. So first thing we're doing, you remember I have this transform. So this tells CloudFormation that I'm going to do the transformation, that this is a SAM template and I need to make some changes, okay? So the second thing I'm going to do, in the scope of this exercise, we're not going to talk too much about this, but we have in serverless this idea called layers. And layers, what they do is you can create a layer, an external layer, and you can share it with third parties. You can share it publicly. You can keep it private, however you want to do. And that layer has shared code in it. So this is the best practice on sharing code across multiple Lambdas, in my opinion. And so what I'm able to do is I have my AWS SDK. And a couple other libraries that I use in a layer that I have. And I use it, in layers are region specific, okay? So I can use it in either, I have a layer out there for US East 1 and US West 2. Those are the 2 regions I mainly deal with. So in this mappings area, if you see right here, I have a mapping that you can do in CloudFormation that I say, if you're in US East, use this one. If you're in US West, use this one. So that's what you're seeing right here, and that's the link to the layers, okay? The second thing we have is a thing called globals. In SAM, the idea of globals means if it appears in the global area, apply it to every whatever. In this particular example, I'm doing functions and APIs. So I have global settings for my functions of a runtime or a timeout of 3, runtime of Node.js 8.10, layer, so and I'm doing a layer lookup, so I'm finding which layer I want. And then an environment. And this environment's really important because I'm going to be using a table name and a session parameter. Okay? And so I'm going to pass in the table name and I'm going to pass in the session parameter, and that's right here. This is a way to make your Lambdas, you don't want to hard code stuff into your Lambdas, right? I mean, this is just good coding practice. You don't want to hard code a table name in here. I want to be able to dynamically build it, especially as ephemeral as serverless is. You want to be able to use that anywhere. I can launch this in 2 different stacks with no problem. It builds the table, it puts all the session parameters in, everything we need. All right, the second thing I do is on my API, I added some CORS settings so that right now I don't care about security. Anybody's going to be able to hit this. And so I've added my CORS to just open it up. And that'll apply to each API, excuse me. But we're only going to be using one. Okay, The second part of this is the session parameters is the resources. So the first thing we're going to do is a session parameter, session name parameter. This is the parameter value this is the parameter that's going to hold our value. Okay, this is the lambdas are going to look it up by the parameter name, and they're going to get back the value that we call our service. The second thing we're building is our get function, and a couple things in here, and then it'll make sense here. On the get function, I'm telling it's a function type. And my properties, here's where I find my function. So from the template right under the get folder, it tells it where to find it. And here's the handler function. So it tells it to look for a file called app and a function called Lambda handler. Okay, this next thing are what we call managed policies. On serverless, we have managed policies because you want to be granular when you do service. You don't want to open it up to everything. So what we're able to do is build these dynamically. So we have these managed policies and they're listed out. When you look at SAM, it'll tell you, here's all the policies that we offer, here's what they do. This first one is a DynamoDB read policy. It only allows you to read, and I'm able to pass it a table name. But instead of hard coding that table name, I'm referencing the table that we're building down here. Okay, so what it's basically saying is this Lambda can read from this table and this table only, and all it can do is read. It can also read, SSM parameter read policy, from the parameter that we created right above. Those are the only two other resources that we need to do. You see how I'm locking this down as I go? The last thing you want to do is come back and lock everything down. Build your security into your infrastructure. Okay, and with SAM and with serverless in general, it's fairly easy to do. And this uses IAM to lock it down. And then we see the events that I talked about earlier. We have an event it's going to create, and this is a logical name, just so I know what it is. And it's going to create an API event on the path of root to say, do a get. Okay, so the method is a get on the path of root. Okay, so that's going to create an API gateway. Now down here, we're doing it again. Okay, so you see all the same things. This time we're passing a CRUD policy, create, y'all know what CRUD is, so create, read, update, delete. And so again, the same table, and this one can also just read from the parameter. Now, one question I get all the time is, look, I've got another Lambda doing another event based on an API. If they're in the same application, it's not going to create an API gateway and a different endpoint for each one. It knows, logically, hey, I'm going to use the same API gateway for both my functions. But one's a get, one's a post. Okay, so that's clear there. All right. The last thing we're creating is a DynamoDB table to save all our records, which is being passed into the Lambdas through the environments that we talked about. And finally, the outputs. The outputs aren't necessary, they're just helpful. Okay, the outputs gather information that I'm going to need. So one thing this is going to do is this is going to give me the API gateway URL that I can give to my front end, that it knows where to hit. It also gives me the table name in case I need it, and it gives me the session parameter name if I want to go in and change that. So this is our SAM template. Lot was done here, and you can see we're building two functions, parameter and a table with all the security in place, and we're passing all that information into our Lambdas. Okay, so you've done a lot with not a lot of lines of code, right? Okay. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to update our applications. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is update our post. Let me see which one I'm going to grab here. Yeah, we're going to grab our post app here. Okay, so in the post folder is the folder called, or the file called app. We're going to clean everything out of there, and we're going to paste our actual code. Quick run through on what this does. This loads up the AWS SDK. It's pulling it from that layer that we're including in the template that I showed you. Locally, it will still work. It'll pull that layer down. So if you're testing locally, it'll actually create a local version of the layer. We're going to do a DynamoDB client, and this is the simple client. There's also a document client that we'll talk about in a second. This is just a simple client that I needed to put something in there real quick. And then we're creating an SSM client. We're creating some moods, and we're tying them to how we're going to, so if I single click, I'm happy, or I'm sorry, it's cool. If I double click, it's uncool. If I long click, it's undecided. All right, and then we're also going to grab, we create a constant of the SSM params, which pulls it from our environment. I have this function that his entire job is to update the item, and that can be, he'll just literally add, he'll increment, and he returns a promise with that. And finally, and if you're not a node person and you don't understand promise, you could be a Node person and not understand promise. It can be frustrating sometimes. But catch me in the hall, I'll be glad to explain that. So here's the main handler. This is what Lambda is going to fire when it invokes this Lambda. And it's the Lambda handler based on what the template said. So he declares some sessions. So he goes out and gets that parameter. Okay, he's going to grab that parameter to know what table to hit in the database, or what record to hit in the database. Then we're going to check if it's HTTP. So we're going to look at the event. So an event is passed into the Lambda. If it has an event.body, that means it came from our website. If it doesn't, then it came from one of our IoT buttons. This is just the way I'm doing it. There's a bunch of different ways you can do that, but I'm just checking to see that. If that's the case, then we're going to parse that body with JSON, and we're going to grab the mood. We're going to tie the click type to the type of mood. If it isn't, then we're going to grab, there's a different kind of event that comes from the buttons that will grab that click type. Okay, so we set the mood based on our table of moods up there, or array of moods. I guess it's an object. The last thing we do is we create a param. This is how you talk to DynamoDB. We're going to tell it what table name we're going to interact with, the key, and then we're going to pass it the session value for the key, and then we're going to, basically it's an atomic counter, right? So we're going to add the mood and the value, and if you don't understand this expression, don't worry about it, okay? This is DynamoDB expressed a little bit out of the scope of this, but this is how I'm integrating with DynamoDB, with the value, and then finally it actually makes that call. If the call fails, we get back a 500. If it succeeds, we get back a 200, and we're good to go. Alrighty? Pretty straightforward code. The DynamoDB might be a little confusing, but that's okay. Anybody use DynamoDB in the room? Okay, a couple of you. So this probably looks kind of foreign. With DynamoDB, you talk to it in JSON objects, right? So I'm going to pass table name and some different things to make that work. All right. And I realize we are running a little slow, so I'm going to turn up the speed a little bit, okay? We're almost done at this part, and then we can see some other stuff. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to update our get. And this is a much shorter function, because his entire job is literally just to read and relay that data. So we're going to go here, and let's go to our get app. Okay. Control all. Okay, so his job. Also, same thing. This time we're using a document client, which the document client kind of does some cleanup for you on the data coming back from DynamoDB. And then we, again, the SSM, we get the parameter name. So this is the parameter name. We use that to go out and get the information. So what we're going to do is we've already got the parameter coming in, and we're going to go out and this is our function, our fetch data function. Here we're going to use that parameter name to go get the value, again, just like we did before, and then we're going to do a request against DynamoDB, and it just says, hey, using this parameter name, or this value, I want you to get me the records back, tell me what it is, and then if it fails, we do a 500, so we've got a catch here, do a 500. If it succeeds, then we return the data back just straight out of there. We use a data item straight out of there. So it's a real simple read from the database. That's all I need you to do. I've got the permissions, everything's there. So we're going to save that. So here's where SAM also makes life much easier. Once we've done this, I'm able to package and deploy my application very easily. I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to grab the commands here so we can make sure. First thing I'm going to do actually is I'm going to do a SAM build. Now if you'll notice here, we've got node modules all throughout here. Okay, these aren't needed, right? These are just for testing. Okay, so I don't want to upload all that, but right now our template tells it grab everything in that folder. So we've got this thing called SAM build, and what SAM build does is he goes through and he makes this .aws SAM folder, and he grabs only what's needed. He ignores that's what that npm ignore is for. You can get just the bare minimum to run your package. So if I look under AWS SAM, I actually have no dependencies. So there's no node modules here. So that makes it very easy. Now I can do a SAM package. Okay, and I'll show you what this command is. So here's what SAM package does. Apparently I hit enter there also. So SAM package is going to be, all I do is I say zip everything up in that folder and put it in an S3 bucket of my choice. And I have this bucket out there in US West 2. And then I say, and when you get the results back, build me a new template with all that updated and put it in out.yaml. Okay, so that's what it's done. And you'll see over here, if we look, we've got a new file called out.yaml. Now I can do a deploy. Still using SAM. Okay, I'm going to say deploy, and I want you to use that out template that we talked about. Okay, I'm also going to pass a capabilities flag. These are just CLI commands to understand. Anytime I'm creating policies, I have to tell it I have the permissions. The CLI is using my local permissions that you set up with AWS when you set up your AWS CLI. It uses those local permissions. Those local permissions give me the rights to put the permissions onto the Lambdas and the DynamoDB and all that. So it's saying, yeah, I'm aware I'm creating policies and I'm good with that. And I'm naming my stack feedback, okay? So let's go ahead and hit enter here, okay? And my default region is in US West 2. That's the one I've chosen. So let's go over here to my management console, and we're going to go to CloudFormation. And I'll blow this up just a minute here. And we're going to switch over to Oregon. And you'll see right here, there's my feedback stack. And it's being created as we speak. Okay, so what it's creating are my two functions, my API gateway, my DynamoDB, my SSM parameter, and it's putting it all together and giving the permissions for all of them to talk. And we did that in roughly 20 minutes. Okay. Full backend to our application. Alrighty, so we're gonna let that build. So while we're doing that, we're gonna look at our front end, just so you can see it work. Okay, so front end, I just built a Vue.js. Anybody use Vue? Any Vue fans? Okay, I use Vue.js and Amplify. Okay, Amplify is an AWS product that allows you to work with front ends, do hosting, things like that. Real quick, while this is building, I'm gonna show you how fast we can do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my Amplify dashboard, and I'm going to open it in a new tab here. Okay, I'm going to make sure I'm in Oregon because that's what I'm working on. And I'm going to go to my apps, and I'm going to connect an app. Okay, my app happens to be in GitHub, and I'm going to go next. And I've already authenticated because I did this earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and choose it, and it's going to be... let's find it. Feedback. Here it is. Feedback Web Client. IoT Feedback Web Client. I have links to all this at the end as well, so you can get to that. And the particular branch that I'm going to build out of is my master branch. I'm going to hit next. And in this, I can actually give it build commands. This will actually spin up a container and run these commands for you, as if you were running straight in the terminal. Okay. So if you have some special things you need to do, you just put them right in here. Luckily for me, this works right out of the box because I use a Vue.js app. The kind of fun thing is, notice down here it says framework, Vue. It already knew. It detected it. So I'm going to go next. And I can do any app settings, branch master, here it is. I'm going to do a save and deploy. And you'll see here in a minute that'll flip over. Now let's check our other one. All right, so our backend's deployed. Okay, here's all our resources and their names. Okay, everything's out there. Now, remember when I talked about that output? Here is my backend from my web API. All right, so let's copy this. Actually, I'll just right-click on that, open a new tab. Okay, so it's a null right now, and that's what we expected because there's no records in the database right now. So this just responds a node. Our front end is smart enough to say, okay, then let's just put all zeros in there. All right, so now let's wire these up. We've got a front end and a back end. Now my back end, this is what we're going to look like. This is the US East one, which we'll do in a second here. My back end here, okay, that's still building, gave me a new IP. The front end building doesn't know what it is, so we're going to have to run one more build in just a second. So let's go back to our back end, and let's grab that API. So we're going to grab this here, and I'm going to go back to my code, which is my feedback code here. Let me open a new workspace. And let's go back to the feedback client. All right. So what I want to do is I want to take and tell this what the new one is. Now this is probably kind of a hack way. We could probably build in some parameters later to do this, but kind of a quick and dirty. In my view, I know that I've got this URL here, and I'm going to, and my view is literally just one page. So we're going to update it. We're going to save it, and we're going to do a git commit -am new API endpoint, and then we're going to git push that. Okay, so that's going to push to my master repo. It's resolving. It's done. What you're going to see here is on that amplify. In a minute, you're going to see that. You're going to see this pop to it. If we go to this site right now, it's not going to work. Okay, it's just going to come up and say, nope, nothing's working right now. But notice when it's finished here, and we'll give this a second to finish, then it'll be connected to the back end, and we can do some playing around with it. So while that's building, I want to show you the IoT button here. I'm going to get a couple of volunteers if I could. You help me out for a sec? I'll toss this to you. Will you open that? Somebody else coming at you? Oh, that was a bad throw. Okay, just open it. I'm going to need the buttons back, but you keep the boxes. Okay, so alrighty. Okay, so we've got a 10-minute warning, so we're gonna do this, but that's okay. We're good. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to tie some buttons in. We want to know, how do we make this work? And as soon as this is done building, you'll see the front end. It's harder than you thought, huh? Yeah, it's like, whoa. I know, that's why I had you do it. But yeah, so if you peel the white part on the underneath where it says RIP, then that tab will open. Okay, so in order to do that, you guys get to see my phone. Okay, so we're going to pop up my phone here. And apparently I have messages on it. Hopefully. So on the phone, let's go back out so you can see it. There's an application called IoT OneClick, AWS IoT OneClick. And that is the one we're going to use for this. There's also AWS, yeah, if I can grab, I can't. I'm a water mess here. All right, let's click this back over. Yeah, I'll just take it, thank you. All righty. Hey, Gary, can you help me for a second? I may have it, but we'll see. Yeah, I got it. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it. Okay. All right. So what we're looking at here is we're able to configure everything we want about the buttons. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to configure the IT. We're going to claim and configure these. Okay. So let's grab one of these buttons. All right. And our front end just built. Okay. So I'm going to say claim with device ID. Okay. And I'm going to do a scan. Let's move this button up here because I have very little movable room here. Okay. And we'll probably just do one for a rush. Okay, so now I'm going to have it find that. And this can be kind of, I'm not going to lie, this can be kind of a pain sometimes. So what you do, can you guys see what's going on there? So you want to move it around until it's the middle. If you don't get it in a little bit, you can manually enter the number. Hang on a second here. If this doesn't, we'll just go to the ones I have already claimed. It's probably too dark. Let me see if I add in the light. Oh, that's not going to help, is it? Yeah, that was, oh, well, maybe it will. All righty. Okay, that's all right. So let me talk you through that because that's actually the easy part. So I am falling apart up here, guys. I apologize. Lapel mic on a non-lapel shirt. All right. So what this does is this is going to claim the button. Okay, and what that means. Let's switch back to the keyboard, and we'll see on the back end here. What that means is it ties the button to your account. And it's not permanent. You can remove that. Okay, ties the button to your account, and then you're able to assign it. So let me show you what that looks like. And I've got some already assigned. So we're going to go over to the OneClick. Okay, and we're going to go, and actually the ones I've got are in US East because that's what we're going to use that in just a minute. And so I can go into my devices, and you'll see here I've got two buttons tied in, and they're both enabled. All right, so what I did is I added the buttons. The next thing I did is I created a project, and that project is called Session Feedback, okay? And the Session Feedback has a template, and all this template is, it says, what do you do? In the template, I assign what it's going to do, and in this, it actually links to the Lambda that we created, the post Lambda. So you see what I'm saying? Not the button itself, but the template links to Lambda. So then what I can do is in the placements of this, I can say button 1 and button 2 both use the same Lambda. Okay? So what you've got going on then is you've got the ability to tie a bunch in or have them do different things, but they'll all tie in to do feedback. So the final part of that is, and in details just kind of show what's going on. So now I've got these buttons tied in. Okay, so I created a project, then I create a template for what they're going to do, and then I create the placements. And I'm sorry we didn't get to walk through all that. Time-wise is getting to us. But we do get to see what's going on. So let's go back to our application. Okay, this is the one that was broken. Now it's not broken. Okay, so now we have this full one. Now I can go to town here, click on it a bunch of times, and it's going to do real-time updates. Okay, and so it's dropping data. Remember that we built this. Let me go back to US West here. Here's our table that we built. Okay, when I go in here, here's the items, and it's just being updated as we go, and it's called My Session, right? Real simple. I cleverly named that, right? So I was able to build that very quickly to build this session out, and we're able to tie buttons in. Now, we're not going to tie the buttons into the ones we've got because, like I said, it wasn't scanned, it's dark up here, and we're running out of time, but we've got one that's working. So what I would like to do is I'm going to pass out 2 buttons, and here's how it works. And you can see as we're going, and painfully, I do want you to be honest. So this is the one they're tied to. I was able to update the Wi-Fi earlier on these, so these should be working. So you're welcome to go to this website, and I have a link for you. Guys, I am literally falling apart up here. Let me pull up the link for you so you can see it. So the link is going to be it's a bit.ly GOTO-feedback. So if you want to go to that website and just use your computer or mobile, you can see, and we'll flip it back, you can see the feedback. But let's also hand you the buttons. A single click is it's cool. A double click is it's not cool. And a double click is it's not cool. And then a long click, and you want to hold it for about 4 seconds, will do undecided. I'm going to throw it to you too. Why don't you just pass that around there? Alrighty. And one of these, I have to remember which one here. Okay. All right. Okay. This one should work. And I'll pass this. You know what? I'll come to you guys with this. I'm going to toss this to you. You ready? All right. Okay. So what we'll do, we should be seeing some ratings coming in. And I won't know who you are, so it's okay. All right, undecided, fair enough, that's fair. Someone just went to town on it, that's cool. All righty, you guys just click, okay, undecided. So what you've got here is you have an IoT button, and you've got a website that you can do ratings on, very quick. There you go, go to Chicago feedback. We've got 1 minute, so I'm going to wrap us up here. You guys are welcome to keep looking at that if you want. All right. So what we did, this is what we built out. We did accomplish it for the most part. The buttons we weren't able to tie in, but you'll see an example of that going on. Okay. And then here's some code for you. So IoT, if you want to take a picture of this, IoT-FB-back and IoT.FB-front. Both of these are just repos that have the code in it. We'll also make the slide deck available to you via PDF, although most of it is in the code, so hopefully that'll work. Please give me feedback, guys. Would love to know how to make this better. I appreciate your time immensely. And what I want to do here is whoever has the buttons right now can keep it. And I've got a couple more I'm going to throw out. And I'm going to unclaim all these. And you are welcome to claim them and have fun with them. I don't have one for everybody, so I'm just going to throw some out here. Ready? My box openers. There you go. You get one. You get one. Come on, way to the back. Ready? Oh, nice snag. Okay, everybody's got one. All right. Guys, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Enjoy GOTO.